Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me today. Our topic is going to be about inner work. So what is inner work? What does that look like? What does that feel like? We're going to dive into that and explain in some pretty great detail what the foundation of that means and how we can choose to have a better life for ourselves depending on the way we think, how we think and speak with ourselves, the relationship primarily that we have within. And I will be using this beautiful little chalkboard I created here for you guys to kind of explain these points. So if you can keep up with me, I know some of this is kind of smudged here, so I will be very clear about the different points I have mentioned in these sections. So starting off, what is inner work? Let's start there. Inner work is looking at the type of things you say to yourselves. How do you speak to yourself? How is that relationship with you? The way your needs were met when you were a child, how that was met by your primary caregiver, often reflects later in life upon our other relationships with friends, the partners we choose, the friends we choose, and the type of relationship we have with them. So we also have that relationship with ourselves. How if I had more of an anxious, let's say if I had more of an anxious style caregiver, I will start to have that experience within, and it'll manifest outwards. And you have to be able to identify what way you're choosing to think, because when you are in that way of choosing to think as your inner child, which I identify as the ego state, the inner child is the one inside. I know it sounds strange, but we all have an inner child, and the inner child is very reactive and has usually toxic traits, meaning to try to protect itself. It has these toxic traits, not realizing that it's causing the things that we don't want to happen because we're being unhealthy in our relationship with ourselves. So when we're younger, if we're more secure naturally, especially with our parents, if they're able to show us how to self-soothe, they show us the proper way to manage problems on our own and how to pretty much have a stable relationship with ourselves and not look outwards for that. That's more of a conscious way of being. Some people are naturally like that, but a lot of us run on this ego way of being. And I'm not saying if you're conscious and you're secure, you don't have these thoughts that you're battling with. You do, but you choose to be more conscious. And it's a lot easier for you to manifest the experiences you want in life because of the background that you have. So going back to what is this ego inner child? So the inner child obviously is the one who keeps in all the things, the painful things, the triggers, the wounds, the worries, all of that. It's a fear-based way of thinking. By trying to protect you, it brings up a lot of past experiences and projects them onto the future. And it doesn't realize the problems it's causing. So we really need to switch our way of thinking. And the only way to identify that is by understanding what we're thinking about and why we're thinking it. What is the story we're telling ourselves? Validating our emotions about what we're feeling, because if we're going to be self-parenting, which I like to call the conscious self, the self-parenting. We know, again, how to self-soothe, how to talk to ourselves, how to provide the things we need and seek out in other people for our own being so that we can be the best version of ourselves for others, but mostly in our own life experience. I mean, in this world, how you feel, how you think, all transpires and manifests in a very significant way, how things play out for you. So when we are in this ego state, we are facing wounds and triggers. So when we're doing the inner work, we're going to have a lot of things come up that we ignore. We'll find that a lot of the time we try to ignore things, or the ego will try to have a lot of bring up a lot of negative self-talk about yourself. And it is a protective mechanism, but it doesn't realize, it's hurting you. Child doesn't know. It only knows how to make itself safe by preparing for the worst. So It tells you lots of stories of fears. Oh, what if this happened? Oh, what if this worst case scenario happened? And oftentimes it doesn't happen, and we make it worse, or we make it happen because of the fear we had to prevent it from happening. What are the stories of fear we are telling ourselves? It has a very fixed mindset. And when you're in that fixed mindset, it's, oh, okay, I try something and I don't do it well. I must just be bad at it. Or I must just be a bad person because I did that. I yelled and I yeah, we all make mistakes, but we're people, we're human, we grow, we learn. And so having this fixed mindset is really hurtful and painful, because you feel like you need to be at a certain tier, and we're all growing and developing. And so being kind to yourself and not blaming yourself for things that are out of control and for not getting things right away, being courteous and patient and compassionate and forgiving for you as you are for others. That's really important to do for you, because you're putting so much pressure on yourself, so much pressure in this life. There's already a lot of pressure, societal pressures. The last thing you need is to be that way to you. So it's a chatterbox also. The ego it'll talk about anything you realize in your mind. You might not even be aware that there's all this chatter going on, but you're like, why am I feeling this way? It's really good to step back and think, what am I talking about in my head? What's going on? What is the story I keep repeating? The ego likes to attach to anything and make it your identity and talk. So be aware that you're aware of this, and it's not you. You are not the talking. It's just the ego. It's just the ego going about blah, blah, blah. Don't give it too much attention. So make sure you kind of back off and realize it's a logical talk. Then we have, again, societal, conditional. I don't know if you see that. Very conditional based way of thinking. If I get this, then I'll be happy. Once I do this, I'll be happy. But you realize whatever goals you set up for yourself, the journey to getting to that goal is what makes it so magnificent. Because whenever you get to these goals, especially the societal ones, you enjoy it for that moment. You may enjoy it for a period of time, but there's always something else. So it's so important to be present. And that's when we're gonna transpire to our conscious self. Our conscious self, on the other side, it has an inner dialogue, but it's more of abundance. It's your supporter. It's your best friend. How I talk to my best friends when they're feeling down, if they're asking me for advice or make a good decision, that's the conscious self. And it talks about you in a way out of love, out of compassion, understanding your history. Nobody understands you like you do. And so really being there for you and being like, you know what, I feel what you're feeling. I understand that you should feel this way. It's okay that you're in a painful experience. It's okay that you failed not being fixed at this project. You can try again. It just looks at solutions. It's compassionate, and it has positive stories about who you are and who you can become. It looks at all the what ifs in a different way. Not what if the worst case scenario. What if everything works out perfectly? What if all these lessons, all this trial and error is to get you to really where you want to be? And that's that growth mindset. That's what it is. Trial and error. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. The important thing is we learn from the lessons and we grow from them so they're not repeated. We want to learn new lessons. We don't want to learn the same lessons. And if we do, it's okay. Have some compassion. I mean, hey, it's hard. There's a lot being thrown at us, we have certain foundations that might not be secure. And so we're self-parenting, we're going back to being that parent, that secure individual we need in our lives. We need it in our lives as well, if you didn't have that necessarily. So it's also more quiet. That mind is more quiet. It's very logical about your situations. It doesn't get lost in the details and in the sadness and the darkness that your ego can go to. It's very logical. It looks at things in a broader picture, a bird's eye view of situations and what you're going to make them mean to you in the long run. And it's also very unconditional love. Having that forever love for yourself, because hey, you're going to be with you forever, you're going to make mistakes. So you need that unconditional love to keep going and to see and manifest your more positive traits. Because if you're so focused on the negative, you're most likely going to manifest in being negative because you're just in that dark space and you can't let the light in. You can't have that light for yourself. So how are you going to be a light for others? How are you going to be so forgiving and compassionate and not do that for yourself? I mean, you do it to such a deeper degree when you can start right here and bring that outwards. So as we've talked about this, I'm going to kind of generalize here what we went over. So we have our ego self. It brings up a lot of important information for us to face about us and our foundation and why we are the way we are and respond the way we respond behaviorally to these external circumstances. So it's really important to have this ego, and obviously it does have benefits having an ego set, but you have to realize its limitations. Now, if you're conscious, you're the creator of your experience, you take power, you're that parent, you're self-parenting this inner child, this ego, you balance it out, having that Tao, having that balance, and taking care of that child, being that secure provider. I have that love for you. There's so much out there. Let's go for it. Because if you don't see that there's anything out there, if you have these self-limiting beliefs, because this is what this ego state is, it has these core wounds, these core wound beliefs that prevent you from living the life you really want. Because if you don't believe that what you want is out there, if you don't believe you can be that person, if you really don't believe that, that's usually what happens. You usually only manifest to that limit. But when you're in this conscious set and you make intentional choices to not think that way, to reprogram how your mind's going to be basing off its thoughts, and it takes time, it takes practice, you can really change your story and change your experience and run into those things that you've always wanted to, or those opportunities, take on those opportunities that maybe this prevented you from going towards. And it can lead to so many things, just changing your whole life. We have every day to live, all this time. We never know when it's done. Living in this conscious mindset is a choice. So you can determine in this time that you have, because you don't know when it's done, not to be vulgar, but you can determine how you're going to think, how you're going to enjoy your life. Are you really going to set all these conditions? Are you really going to stay in this state, or are you going to be here and see what happens and see what transpires? Because most likely you will manifest such a beautiful outcome for yourself, and you will learn those lessons and you can grow from them. And you will be that person you always needed within, and things that happen outside of you won't break you. You can go through life, let things go, and not saying things aren't going to be hard, but you know how to take care of yourself. So I want you to practice this strategy. A little assignment for you would be something that I've also been practicing, and I do it every day, and that is when I'm having a certain feeling, something negative is coming up, I address it. So I want you to take a step back and identify what are those stories you're telling yourself, what are those emotions that are coming up, do a journal, and then I want you to change that. And you don't have to do this all day, it can be a lot. I'd say look at what are the core things that keep coming up throughout your day, and then later on in the day or in the morning, if you feel it strongly, whenever you feel it strongly, write it down so that you can really dive into what the ego is bringing up that you're not facing, and figure out why that is and the trigger behind that can kind of help you develop a behavior or coping mechanism to grow past it and let those feelings go, not keep them stuck here, not blocking your heart chakra, which I like to call, not keeping your heart closed. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for listening to me today about what inner work is. I'm going through this process with you, so as I post videos, these are all things that I've practiced, I've been learning about as well. So I plan on posting every week, every other week, but I like to post with intention, feeling I really have something to share with you guys that I've been learning and growing through myself. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to my channel so you get notifications for when I'm next posting. Until then, namaste, take care.